This is the Fujifilm GFX 50R, and this is a very impressive camera. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to take this out in Rome to try it out and see what it can do. And I think it's important to mention this up front. I was expecting this camera to be good. I was ready for it to produce nice images, but this camera was shockingly good. It was consistently surprising me with how good everything was looking straight out of camera. But let's blast through some of the specs of this camera just so we know what we're talking about here. So the 50R is housing a very impressive 51.4 megapixel medium format CMOS sensor. And that means it's quite a bit bigger than a full frame sensor, giving you a huge amount of detail in your picture. But that bigger sensor isn't just delivering you more detail, you're actually getting much wider dynamic range as well. And on top of that, you're getting finer noise, so overall, you're just able to capture so much more. Now, it's worth touching on that dynamic range just for a minute, because the photos as they come out of camera are just so impressive, with the detail in the shadows and the highlights, and I was constantly surprised when I looked through the EVF. And then even more so, the level of detail I've been able to pull out of the pictures in post. The shadow recovery is actually really impressive, and honestly, it's just made me really happy. Now, as you'd imagine from Fujifilm, the colours are outstanding. I've been really impressed with what I've been able to capture around Rome, and especially on a sunny day where there's obviously darker shadows and then the sky is really bright. I was really happy that I was able to capture so much detail. Now, because I'm out in the city moving around a lot, I've mostly been shooting handheld, and this camera is just so easy to shoot with handheld. It is big, there's no getting away from that, but for me personally, it was never too big at any point, and as much as it does have some weight to it, I was carrying it around in the city for most of the day, evening, and a part of the night without ever feeling overburdened by it. Now, for the most part, I was shooting on the 32 to 64mm f4, which, apart from being an outrageously nice lens, gave me the versatility I needed while shooting out and about in the city. It's also worth mentioning the 50R has the X Processor Pro along with its medium format sensor, so it gives you a native ISO range of 100 to 12,800, although that is expandable, and I did expand it to 50 to 102,400. It can also shoot up to 3 frames a second, and it's able to shoot video at 1080p at up to 30 frames a second, although I seriously doubt that anyone is actually looking at this camera for its video specs or for shooting high speed for something like sports. Now, in terms of the design of the camera itself, the 50R borrows more of a rangefinder design, and like I mentioned earlier, I never had any issues with the size and the weight, but it is worth being aware of what you're getting into. It's also weather and dust resistant, so it's a pretty durable camera all round. It features a 3.69 million dot OLED electronic viewfinder, which is actually really nice, and in addition to that, it's got a 3.2-inch 2.36 million dot LCD touchscreen. It's tiltable as well for shooting at awkward angles, which was really handy while I was out shooting the city, and it is actually one of the primary ways of controlling the camera or reviewing your images. The other is the joystick, which actually works really well and is super intuitive, but there is no 4-way control pad, which some people might be looking for. Otherwise, it has dedicated dials placed about the body to independently adjust aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, including those lovely dials on the top of the camera to easily see at a glance the shutter speed you're shooting at, as well as the exposure compensation dial. It's actually worth taking a moment to mention just how easy the camera was to control while out shooting. Independent dials for aperture, shutter speed, and ISO meant I never actually had to take my eye away from the EVF. It was just so easy and intuitive to adjust settings while shooting, and in that regard, I'd actually go as far as to say it's one of the easier cameras to shoot with that I've used in recent times, which I really wasn't actually expecting. Now, on the bottom of the camera, it does take the same battery as the GFX 50S, along with dual SD card slots as well. Now, ultimately, if you shoot landscape or any kind of fine detail photography, this is an incredible camera. The level of detail from it is just outstanding, and the super wide dynamic range makes it perfect for all kinds of things as well. So architectural photography, obviously landscape again, but this would make a superb portrait option as well. On top of that, it's just a lovely camera to use and shoot with. Now, if you have any questions about the 50R at all, pop them down in the comments below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Like and subscribe if you like the video. No pressure though, but I would appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.